All right. Welcome back to the Rise and Above podcast, everybody. Today, I have a special guest with me. I have Nikki Snyder, who is on the board of the Michigan I'm sorry, messed that up already. She's on the Board of Education for Michigan, and we're going to discuss some important topics regarding sexual education and a bunch of other stuff as well. But if you're watching on Facebook or on Instagram or YouTube or on X, please be sure to like and subscribe. That helps the channel grow. So without further ado, Nikki, how are you doing today?
Fabulous. It was a long day. I actually had the Board of Education meeting today, so I'm happy to be here and thank you for the invite and
Absolutely.
looking forward to delving into things.
So can you move that mic a little closer? Sorry.
Sure.
So I guess what did anything significant happen today?
Today we kind of debated what we debated last month, and really at the heart of the controversy is protecting parental rights. I would argue protecting freedom in our country and protecting kids. So, we revisited that in relationship to approving minutes at the board table, but so let's just jump right into it. So,
I love
what we
that.
have and this is really important because it's kind of it's a confusing topic. And I think the department really likes it to be confusing because then what ends up happening is that the sex education law and the Michigan Merit Curriculum and health education law become conflated and confusing to the extent that exactly what is okay to do and what is not okay to do, and what's required to inform parents of, and what can they really opt out of, and what do we not have to inform them of. And I think that's really what will happen in the next decade is if we allow this confusion to stand, parents will lose rights and students will really be at risk, in my opinion. So our sex education law is very clear. It says any sex education topics will be separated from all of the other topics that we teach in public education and the curriculum that they adopt at local levels. And it will be separated from the rest of everything else, including health. And our health education statute in Michigan is also very clear. It says that the department shall create guidelines and that local districts will align with those guidelines. So that's that requirement when people say, okay, do we really have to follow this? Yes, it has to align with health education. And that's required for graduation, right? So we know that kids in local school districts are now going to be taught something that, including gender identity theory, which we should talk about. And so local curriculum has to align with gender identity theory as a result of the health education guidelines that were passed by the department.
That was passed last month. Correct?
That was passed last month. Yep. And it went directly against really the defined set of health education topics that our legislature said, this is what health education is. This is what sex education is, and they are to be separated. So that's really what's going on. That's kind of the summary of the problem. I relate to it with a number of different hats on, right? As a nurse and I'm actually a lactation consultant. A mom of 3 and Christian, and just being somebody who really tries to approach things from a love-centered way, I would say. And I think oftentimes people that have this discussion get lost in this idea that they're not compassionate if they don't agree, or that they're not focused on safety if they don't agree.
How old are your kids?
They are 18, almost 19. That's my oldest. He is at University of Michigan studying engineering, and 16 and 11.
So was this something that was introduced when they were in school? And when did Michigan start pushing this kind of agenda?
Actually, in 2016, with the transgender guidelines that encouraged boys to use girls' bathrooms, to be in girls' sports.
And that's when you went on to the board, correct?
That I decided to run for the State Board of Education for a number of reasons, academically with my own children, but also during that policy time. It was very frustrating to me because they is always the department. I want to be very clear. My fiance is like, who is they? The department was very, they were very clear about there needing to be safety in schools, right? For one group of students. And, I have a history of sexual assault, and I know a lot of women have a history of sexual assault. And one of the things is, okay, do you care about how they define safety? Is that important to you? Or are we just pushing forward a set of guidelines that, honors the safety of one group of students and doesn't consider the whole? So at that point in time, I kind of introduced my story to the board and did public comment like a lot of people do, and decided to run for the State Board of Education. So no, we had a policy that actually passed at that time. And one of the most frustrating things is it's been 9 years since I've been serving on the board, and it has only gotten worse.
More progressive.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would say that it's that much harder to communicate the perspective of what does it look like for everybody's safety to be protected? What does it look like for everybody to have the right to adopt a set of beliefs and be able to truly carry them out, the free exercise thereof, the equal protection thereof? The Constitution matters, right?
Yeah.
What it's feeling like with these kinds of policies is that it only matters for one group of people, or some, not all.
What is the incentive for the people on the board to want to continuously push this progressive agenda?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I don't necessarily know that there is an incentive, but I do feel like
Is there funding behind it?
No, I think the 6 Democrats just rubber stamp everything, right? They've gotten so used to the department doing the work that actually they're supposed to do. Okay. So back to statute. Constitutional verbiage of what the State Board of Education is supposed to do and statutory responsibility is we're supposed to develop standards, not the Department of Education. So what's really happened over time is the department has become very rogue. They have no accountability. They have no accountability with the governor.
Yeah, that's what Monica was saying when she was on here.
Yep. No accountability with the legislature. No accountability with the State Board of Education. Really, the tail is wagging the dog there.
Who do they have to answer to?
Really, no one.
So they're just kind of their own made up entity.
Correct.
Essentially.
And that's why you see this policy, this set of guidelines that actually overrides Supreme Court opinion, right? So they quite literally don't fear Supreme Court opinion, the law of the land. They have no interest in considering how serious the issue is.
So the stuff that Trump passed, that it doesn't matter.
They don't care.
Wow.
I mean, MHSAA is okay with boys participating in girls' sports right now.
Yeah, there was a case recently, right? Here locally in the Lansing region, correct? Where there was a boy that identified as a girl on a volleyball team, I believe.
Yeah, there's a number of cases all around the state, to be honest with you. Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. In my hometown, like we played another local team and lost to them. And I really wish they had stood up, to be honest with you, and said something and done something. But
what can they do though?
It's really hard to stand up in those situations and do something. It really is.
I mean, what would you do?
I would have literally protested. I mean,
refused to play.
I would have forfeited.
Yeah.
I would have, as a team, band together and forfeited and put forth the effort to say this is wrong.
I think the biggest thing though is if you're in that position, you're afraid of the backlash, because I mean that's something that like the left wing or like democratic ideals are kind of pushed. It's more commonplace, I guess I should say. So if you're somebody that kind of bucks the system and you're against those things, you're kind of looked at as like an outcast or an outlier.
Yeah,
in a sense.
Sassy. I'm considered sassy.
I don't know if I'd say
on a regular
sassy.
basis. She talks too much. She's a loudmouth. Yeah, I've heard a lot of different things like, why don't you just sit down and be quiet? That's what you risk.
Yeah,
and you just have to continue to move forward and be confident. So I think one of the issues is that in the absence of large groups of people standing up for rights that everybody has, there has to be leaders that move to the forefront. And so, I would say that you saw that in Trump's EO. You see that in a lot of the parents that showed up at the Board of Education meeting last month when they opposed it.
How many parents were there?
Oh my goodness, it was 2 months in a row.
I heard there was a bunch.
Yeah, there were hundreds. And the reality is,
and they still don't care, the Board of Education.
No, and believe it or not, the people that supported supported the health education guidelines, they were actually, the bulk of them are from a taxpayer-funded organization that we appropriate dollars for in the legislature. So how do everyday people stand up and say this is wrong when they can show up in droves and be fought by organizations that are funded by their own tax dollars?
Yeah, that's crazy.
So that was Moash. Like, look into Moash. I think if you were to dig into who really showed up to that meeting in support of those guidelines, you would see that taxpayer-funded organization really being asked to show up in support in a way that made it difficult for the department to really see that people don't want this. They really don't want this.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm pulling it up.
No worries.
So it's this right here. Moash mobilizes youth voices, engages community partners, and informs decision makers to advance sexual identities and rights.
They came in droves in their T-shirts. Actually, it was very clear. So, you're a member of Moash. Moash is paid by, appropriated dollars. I think it was like $2 million or something. It's significant enough to mobilize an effort like this and then come. But I mean, really, if you polled this issue, there's no way that you wouldn't have significant pushback.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So what is it like with I mean you're obviously kind of you're against all these things that they're pushing, the narratives that they are trying to get out there. What is that like being on the board?
It's frustrating.
Do most people agree with you, or
let's talk first about what it's like. It's frustrating because I am a nurse. I do have an educated background of particularly this issue. I became an international certified lactation consultant after I had spent time in the bedside with mothers and babies for a very long time. I loved my job. And I actually did help out. I've had patients that have had double mastectomies because of, transitioning. And what I find to be interesting is that experience of, you quite literally have to put a bottle on their shoulder. It's called a supplemental nurser system, bring it down to where their breast would be, but it was obviously removed. And then put a pacifier in the baby's mouth and put that supplemental nurser system in the side of the baby's mouth. And just the whole effort of having to do something artificially that we were made to do in a very real way is actually, it's incredibly concerning to me, because I think that what we're doing when we ask 5-year-olds to change their name potentially without their parents knowing, live a completely different life at school than they might live at home.
Is there cases of that?
Yes, there
in
are
Michigan?
cases. Yes. And in Power School, which is the system that Michigan uses for students' profiles, you can go in and see that there might be a name that they use while they're at school, and that's not consistent with their records that they have at home. So, or what they're called at home. So what their record is in school is not consistent and doesn't match with what's happening at home. That has happened.
And is that what they go by at school, by calling the kid whatever is on Power School?
Yep. Anybody who's there to educate them is expected to follow that concept.
Whoa.
So, but think about it. By the time they get, this is what we're starting when they're that young, right? These are the health education guidelines we're talking about. Let's talk about gender identity theory as if it's something that's factual and real, and a belief system that, schools, the government, really the schools as an extension, have adopted. By the time they're how old? They're getting gender transitions. They're doing double mastectomies.
What is the youngest recorded age for that in Michigan?
I don't know what it would be in Michigan. I know University of Michigan just took a stand and said we're not doing minor gender transition anymore.
Is it because of what Trump?
There was
he's
a
wanting to
threat.
hold people legally liable
funding.
for that.
Yeah, withholding funding. But there was a case in California, if you followed it. She was 16 years old, and she had a double mastectomy, and then she really regretted it, I think around age 21. I should send you that case. But
I can look it up.
She ended up, I believe, suing her parents, the school district, and anybody who really encouraged her to do that. Because, she was totally fair in suggesting that, you're here to guide me and direct me in the right way, not the wrong way.
After she transitioned?
Yeah.
Wow.
She transitioned and then regretted it. Because when you make those types of incredible physical changes to your body, and you're, think about it. One of the things that we hear often is that, our brains aren't fully formed until 21. Some people say until you're 25, 26. And yet we're encouraging them to make these decisions from when they're very young.
Is this Chloe Cole?
I want to say, yes, look at a double mastectomy at age 15. She began transitioning at 17.
I'm going to add this to the screen.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to add it to the screen because then everybody can see. What in the world? All right. Where were you reading that?
Right there, it says Cole began transitioning at 12 and at age 13 began undergoing treatment, which included puberty blockers, testosterone, and a double mastectomy at age 15. She began detransitioning at 17, all before she was 18, after experiencing hallucinations during an LSD trip and converted to Christianity. That's a very interesting story, but ultimately, the facts right there that are really shocking is that any of that happened all before age 18.
Yeah, I mean, how are people not held legally liable for that?
Well, I think that was, if you scroll down, is there, again, I think she sued her parents and the school system.
So she began to regret transition. At 17, she reverted to using her birth name and detransitioned. Cole has said that her doctor did not follow the standards of care from the World Professional Association of Transgender Health, and that she did not know detransitioners existed until she was one. When she expressed regret to her gender care specialist, they offered to recommend a surgeon for breast reconstruction, which she decided not to pursue. A therapist who examined Cole said in a court filing that Cole decided to detransition during an LSD trip at 16 when she heard a female voice telling her that she was lying to herself about being a boy, and that following this she became a Christian. It's kind of crazy. Okay. Cole's parents have stayed out of the media spotlight. Cole says she does not hold them responsible for consenting to her treatment and surgery, and that they received intense social pressure and pressure from medical professionals.
Okay, so she went after the medical professionals, which is totally reasonable.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's kind of crazy that she was high.
I don't. Well, you never know what brings people to the place they need to be at, but I guess that's actually, let's think about it from the perspective of identity, because
Well,
that's what really the Supreme Court opinion is talking about. There are a lot of people that believe that their identity is in Christ, right? Like, and they believe that God didn't make a mistake with how He made them. It's really hard to raise your kids up in that spiritual reality when you then send them to school and you wouldn't even know if
yeah,
teachers are encouraging them or staff or our schools, anyone is encouraging them to adopt an entirely separate set of beliefs, which is contrary to what's happening at home. One of the things I feel like we need to acknowledge is that parents, when we say parents' rights, it's a responsibility to teach your child how to love themselves for who they are. But now the opposite message is happening on a regular basis is if you don't like who you are, you can change who you are. Well, which is it?
right.
Do we really want to encourage, parents to love and accept and celebrate and encourage their child for who they are? Like, and why do you get to decide school system and government when that isn't the case?
Right.
Uh, that that's just not tracking with me.
I think my biggest issue is them forcing the kids to learn these topics. My kids, they have the Wonder Years program at their school,
Okay.
and I was going through the curriculum recently, and they in the curriculum, 6th grade and up, they talk about very inappropriate topics that I don't believe that they should be learning: anal sex, oral sex,
Yeah.
vaginal sex,
Mhm.
masturbation, things like that. And
In 6th grade.
yeah, in 6th grade. Why is that necessary?
I mean, not to get like too personal, but I don't even think I understood what those things were in 8th grade. Like that was not even. These are topics that I did. That's what I'm trying to figure out is where is the sexualization of children coming from?
You don't know.
Well, I know exactly where it's personally where I know it's coming from. Again, based on my set of beliefs, I know exactly where it's coming from. But what what makes schools feel as though they should be the bearers of that information?
That's what interests me because, like if I were to go to a friend's house and they had an 8-year-old or a 9-year-old there, and I started talking to them about sex, and their parents walked in, they'd be like, "Hey, what are you doing? That you're being a pervert. You're essentially kind of a pedophile.
Exactly. You don't
And
have the right to do that,
I don't have the
right?
right to do that.
I'm their
And
parent.
I would never do that. But some random teacher who I don't know is going to be teaching my children about those things, those topics. It seems, I don't know, it's sick.
I was talking to my fiance about remember, I mean, I guess I don't know how old you are, but I'm 41. So like
32.
okay, I used to walk through, the checkout lines, and the smut magazines were still a very popular thing. Now that, computers and phones are the way that people access that unfortunate type of thing, you don't have access to see that it's covered, right? A society that covered the smut magazines said very clearly, this is not for children's eyes, right? This is not for children's consumption. And even as a consenting adult, um, there's still obviously opinion on whether or not it's good for you. I would argue it's not good for you. You get to decide for yourself after you're 18. Again, we live in a free country, but at least the society said, we're going to cover this because it's not for children's eyes. Some of the things that we saw when we were going through what is in libraries, in public schools, would have been covered when I was, growing up.
What were some of the things?
Like actual depictions of blowjobs, and like we're talking like really crass imagery in relationship to books that a child can just check out. And, verbal examples of sexual interactions, with
Mhm.
various different types of couples. And you're like, okay, again,
Do you know the names of some of those books?
I could get you a whole list of them. A whole list that was presented to the Michigan Library Association as books that should not be in public education.
I seen a video where you were bringing this topic up amongst the board, and there was a lot of pushback regarding this. They didn't like that you were bringing that up.
For sure.
Why is that?
I think there is a mentality and a thought process that you should just let your kids go, and that you just have to recognize it. Here's one of the things I loved to hear our last superintendent say. He said they could Google worse.
That's if they have access.
Wait, exactly. But hold on. Are you honestly telling me that because you think they can Google worse, that it's okay that it's in schools?
Right.
There's a mentality here that's very much, well, they're going to get it somewhere. Says who?
So is their idea is that they're going to see it elsewhere? We should educate them on it?
Yes. Or that maybe they, I was talking to somebody recently doing an interview, and they said, okay, well, but what about those students that may not have access to sex education? And in fact, their parent opted them out. What if they can't access it? What do you mean, what if they can't access it? To your point, like people talk about it, friends talk about it. They're probably exploring, they're probably asking
But
questions to their parents.
again, that's up to the parents to educate them on that.
Exactly, go back to the parents. And if the parents don't educate them on that, they're going to find out about it. And it really just highlights the point of, why are we choosing to sexualize kids at a young age? Why is it a requirement, first of all?
So I recently had to deal with this on a very, very personal level, and I had to get a judge involved, and the judge ruled in my favor and agreed that at fourth grade, that is way too young to be learning about these kind of topics,
Yeah.
because fourth grade is when they start introducing it. They kind of go over like the your body's changing in this kind of way. You might have these kind of feelings, puberty essentially. But then in fifth and sixth grade is when it gets more progressive. And he agreed. He's like, he has like a youth program, and he's like, the thing is these kids are sexualized way too young, and they start becoming sexually active at a way younger age. However, learning about these topics is important, but there's a certain age that is appropriate. Would you agree with that? Or would you say that there's a certain age that you would recommend to learn about some of these topics?
I think it's total. First of all, health education guidelines in Michigan are rooted in statute, and there are some required portions of health education, including like HIV, AIDS, education, abstinence, and pregnancy. So yeah, there are topics in which are required that.
Is it true that because obviously abortion is part of that, like learning about it, like that's
not part of the requirements.
That's
not part of sex education. Yeah.
That is part of
That's
sexual.
one of
Okay.
the, carved out, sort of separated. We believe this is a conversation between a parent and their child.
Okay. So, but a part of that, is it in the curriculum? I guess I should ask.
So the process here is that local school districts will get those health education guidelines, and then they have to choose a curriculum that aligns with those health education guidelines.
Okay. So it may or may not be in it.
Yeah. But
Okay.
it's very unlikely that a local school district wouldn't adopt it because it's supposed to align with, right? So,
Right.
and gender identity theory is one of those things that they considered a health education guideline.
So is giving the child up for adoption in there? Would that be part of that too?
Probably not.
Like-
Well, maybe. I mean, there's family, they talk about various family systems within the guidelines. So, it could go as far as describing the various types of family systems. They'll probably discuss adoption and curriculum.
Okay. I'm just curious because I had somebody else on the podcast recently, and they said that they don't teach that.
Oh, you're saying if somebody's pregnant as a teenager,
Right.
and that's an option,
Right.
that would be sex education curriculum, and that's a separate process because we separated the two out. A local sex education advisory board would choose the curriculum they choose just based on local discussion within a certain body that's, compiled a certain way. That's all statutory.
So it's based on school district?
Yes.
Okay.
And then parents have the right to opt out of the curriculum and
For the school
lessons
district.
that, yes.
Oh, okay. So what you guys are doing is essentially the overall broad spectrum of health.
Yeah, what the board did last month, the 6 Democrats rubber stamped the guidelines that the department developed, and those guidelines included gender identity theory. So, and then it included sex education, and it said in the guidelines, oh, but this is sex education, and parents are supposed to be able to opt out of this. That's great, but you're still including gender identity theory, and that's really significant. That's a huge shift in really the government and schools, by extension of the government, adopting a set of beliefs and forcing it upon families. That's what you're doing with those.
So for the people watching, can you explain what gender identity is? And because I talk to so many parents, that are like my age, that have kids my age, and they have no idea that the schools teach this stuff. And it's a huge concern every time I bring it up, and I sound like a crazy person. I'm like, yeah, they teach this stuff. It's crazy.
We're living in different worlds because it was not like that for them. The best way to explain it, and it's probably not an approved definition from, supporters, but it's the best way to explain it. We believe there are 2 different genders, biological male, biological female. And those who support gender identity theory believe that there's more than 2 genders.
So how did they teach that?
We get to find out because I've never seen such curriculum. And, what we're doing is just like, setting the foundation. And I think that changes over time, just like any other curriculum.
I just want to know how you base that in facts to a child.
Yeah. Right. Because if we're learning that a biological female has breasts, then are we systematically stating that a trans male doesn't have breasts? You see, this is
where I start getting lost.
Yeah. Then what? Okay. So let's take a step back. We used to be taught, anatomy and physiology states that biological males have a penis and biological females have breasts and a vagina, right? Okay. Well, if I can be a male and I identify as a trans male means that I'm originally a biological female. I believe I'm now a male, so I'm considered a trans male. How do you define that?
You're a she-male.
Well, but how would you would I have to do something to my body to qualify as the trans male?
Right.
Would I have to take hormones to qualify?
Or do you just have to feel it?
Correct.
I feel that way.
And by the way, this is at the center of exactly what's going on in boys participating in girls sports. Because, okay, so my fiance and I do CrossFit, and it does not matter how much I work out. It does not matter how many PRs I set. I am never going to deadlift what that man deadlifts.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah.
I can become a trans male. I'm never going to be able to compete in a male category and win.
Yeah.
Right?
You just simply look at the Boston Marathon times in order to qualify for the Boston Marathon. Men and women have 2 different times in order to qualify because we're not built the same. We're different.
So, okay. So even if we do get to a point where we define what it means for me to be a trans male, right? I have to do this surgery. I have to take these hormones. we're going to do vice versa now. You're the trans female, okay, because you're a biological male, but you're now a trans female. And what does
I'm
it
winning
mean?
all the trophies.
All of it.
I'm winning all of them.
You're taking all of it away. And by the
Yeah.
way, it's so funny because
It's not a bad move if you want to be a winner.
exactly. And so here's my frustration with it. This is why I feel like this is the civil rights issue of our time, is that we fought for so long and so hard, women did,
Yeah.
to have access to sports and to have access to things within the public education arena so that we could succeed. And now we're just giving it up to men who think they're women.
The most interesting aspect of that is other women that are in support of it, because I'm like, you do realize what's happening. You're literally having your rights taken away by men.
While they're, by the way, chanting that, we don't want to teach an accurate portrayal of history, or that we're trying to erase history in other areas. Are you trying to erase my history right now? Because the accurate portrayal of Title IX rights is that it was epic for women. It was epic. When you consider how much they gain confidence in having access to the education system after Title IX and what they've done with their lives since. So, I mean, who gets cut from the volleyball team if the boy is going to perform the way that you would expect a boy to perform?
Right.
Right? Who's going to get the scholarship when the boy excels and outshines? And, like that's the problem, is that we said where there's a male team, there will be a female team. But what we're really saying now is where there's a male team, there will be another male team. And you can have access to both.
I guess the biggest concern, right, is obviously it's a concern all across the board, but it's a huge concern in like high schools and middle schools, correct?
Yes, for sure. Once they start to really compete at a higher athletic level, I would say that it's really hard to continue to go up against male competition. And it separates itself really between 12 and 17.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. How many cases are there of that in Michigan? Do you know, or like right now?
No, because are there reporting requirements?
I thought there was. I thought they had to like sign a waiver that one trans identifying person did not sign.
That it'd be great to find out. Is there something on MHSAA website, or can we search it really quick?
I can look it up.
I mean, I think that's important, right? Another thing that's very interesting when you consider data tracking, right? We track data of groups that need to be protected frequently, and a lot of policy is rooted in thinking about the issue through the lens of those groups of people. And so if we're not tracking it, it would be hard for me to I want to know that girls have equal access to these things. That's important to me.
What would I look up on the website?
It's a great question. Trans reporting requirements, maybe. And again, these are the things we talk about at the board table, right? Is, do we require reporting on that? Do we follow that? How can we really define the issue? And what does it look like to solve problems? And is it a problem at all, right? These are all the questions. And every month you come back and everybody has, something a little bit different to say about things. But at the end of the day, if students are harmed by the policy that goes out of our board, it's very frustrating.
And what is the common narrative amongst everybody on the board?
Well, it's 6-2, 6 Democrats to 2 Republicans. So, typically it's my partner, Tom, and I that are.
That's crazy.
And by the way, since 1963, we really haven't had a majority, but maybe I think 2 years if we were lucky. I'd have to backtrack and see. Yeah, I don't know what the rules are. Let me see if it MHSAA rules on trans athletes. One of the biggest things I do at the table, there are AI platforms that are really helpful to pull up statute right away, or Robert's Rules of Order. And I don't know, it helps to guide discussions.
I guess for the people watching, if you guys have any questions or anything, feel free to throw them in the chat. I'm sure she would be happy to answer them. Yeah, we've had 3 people steadily watching this, so they're obviously intrigued by this conversation. And, this is a huge topic. It's a huge topic of interest for me because my kids are in school. But
Yeah.
Did you find that or no?
No, my phone isn't working. I don't know if there's an issue with service in
No.
here. It's just saying it can't open the page. Search MHSAA rules on trans athletes.
Okay. The Michigan High School Athletic Association previously had a policy allowing transgender student athletes to participate based on their identified gender with requirements for waivers, but faced legislative pressure and evolving legal landscape leading to ongoing discussions and potential changes, with some state bills seeking to restrict trans girls' participation in girls' sports.
There it is. See what
Well,
it says? Identified gender.
where are you looking at?
When I say what defines me, if
Oh,
you
right.
yeah,
right here.
identified gender. All you have to do is identify.
And you don't have to prove anything
No.
or wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's and so okay, so why is opposing teaching gender identity theory in schools important? Because if every kid in the school is being taught that this is how it is, that this theory, this belief system is fact, then are you supposed to be the one, back to the very beginning of this conversation, are you going to be the student that stands up and opposes that?
No, look like a crazy person.
Correct, right? Like, are you going to be the girl that says, I wanted to play volleyball, but there are 3 boys on the team just because they identify as a girl?
Right.
That's MHSAA's policy. And I'm being taught that gender identity theory is a fact.
Yeah, and then you're outcasted if you disagree with that.
Yep. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of students that feel like they can't speak up. I'm sure.
Yeah, I bet.
So yeah.
What other things are of interest to you?
Literacy. Teaching kids to learn how to read, which is really what we should be doing in schools. We rank 44th in the nation in 4th grade reading. We have 75% of our 11th graders are not proficient in math.
Wow.
So even if our graduation rates are increasing, you have to think about that is the quality of education or the performance, if you will, and that skill set is going to translate to success and opportunity later.
Mm-hmm. So did Michigan lower their standards for that?
No, that's just the testing shows us that.
Okay. And why is that? Why has it gone down?
Well, literacy has spent 50 years in a debate over what good literacy instruction looks like. You probably remember phonics being, have you heard of phonics yet?
Yeah.
That's really the foundation for good literacy instruction. We went from phonics instruction to whole language instruction, even at the behest of many experts saying this is the wrong direction. And we had publishing companies that were encouraging political beliefs that whole language was the right way to go through what they published to teachers. And then it became a war of who's right and who's the expert. And it has taken 50 years to get back to the place where we say whole language isn't cutting the rug and we need to go back to phonics. So now what we're doing in Michigan, especially with the literacy committee that is assessing high quality literacy curriculum, is this is what you need to switch back to if you're willing. And we want to walk alongside you so that you can do that, so that we can turn around our literacy rates in Michigan.
Do we look at do we look at other states and how they're doing it?
Yeah. So Mississippi, have you heard of the Mississippi Miracle?
No.
Okay. So they were in the bottom like we are, and they took a number of specific actions, including 3rd grade retention and literacy initiatives like our literacy committee. There were a number of things that they did, and they did them with fidelity, and they went hard at it, and they improved significantly. I think they're in 25th now.
Wow.
Like they ranked 25th after they were in the bottom 5. I think they ranked dead last actually, and then moved to 25th based on nationwide standardized testing.
Wow.
So, but it's our statewide standardized testing that says that 11th graders, 75% of them are not proficient in math.
That's crazy. How did literacy get affected during COVID?
Well, I mean, think about it. The students that were going into COVID 1 or 2 grade levels behind and then only had access to a Zoom education.
Yeah, that was my daughter. She started school,
Yeah.
started kindergarten during COVID.
Yeah. And by the time you're in 3rd grade, which probably, I mean, if you start school in 2020 as a kindergartner, you're going into 3rd grade by the time school's back in full swing, which
Yeah.
is really her story.
Yeah.
So 3rd grade is really that critical year that most kids can show that, okay, they're doing pretty good. They've got, some reading skills under their belt, or we need to identify them for supports moving forward. Because if you're not catching up or identified in need of catching up by 5th grade, research shows that that's the year that is really hard to
that's when you get left
students.
behind.
Yeah.
Yep. I just, with my daughter being in school, it seemed like it was a common narrative for most of the students to be behind, because especially for the ones that were, like you said, they started in kindergarten and then through 3rd grade. Those are very formative years. And, you're literally learning to like what it's like to be in a classroom setting. And you didn't get that at all.
Behaviorally,
Or even like what's expected of you educationally.
yeah. What does a day look like, feel like? How do you show up?
Yeah.
Right? This is not, now we're not just talking about how do you show up on time. You're talking about exactly how do you show up with yourself in order to be ready to learn. If you've never had that example because you started in kindergarten. I think what we saw too was maturity and mental health, significant declines. I mean, this is a real issue, not just for Michigan students, but nationwide. But I would say that Michigan suffers a little bit more so because our schools stayed shut down longer.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah, it was a crazy time. I do not wish to go back to that time. One of the worst moments of that time was a state board meeting. I think it was our last online meeting before we returned to in-person learning. And actually, no, it was our first in-person. It was as soon as we got back to in-person meetings, what ended up happening is we were fighting over the mask mandate. And I loved it because people were rising up. I don't know. That's what your podcast is. I don't really know that I've ever seen a moment like that in my adult life. And I wonder how often they really happen. But mask mandates brought people out. The mask mandates were what people were willing to say, I'm going to speak up about this. This is not okay. Well, at the time, our current board president, she was not board president at the time. She's running for the 35th U.S. Senate seat, Senate seat statewide. So she is talking about mask mandates. She puts forth a resolution and she wants the state board to adopt mask mandates. Surprisingly enough, we actually got 2 Democrats to say, we're not going to do this. So it didn't pass. It broke 4-4. By the way, we had no idea walking into that meeting that the 2 Democrats were willing to vote like that. So when you think about
how far after COVID was this?
This was, I think we were in the 2nd, maybe the 3rd phase.
Okay.
So she pretty much said, you are killing our children. If you don't agree with mask mandates, you're killing our children. So what we're talking about here today is really, it's significant because people who say things like that are really inciting violence. Because if you believe that my policy stance is harming your very life, then what am I to expect?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
How am I to expect that you would treat me if you really believe that? If you really believe that that's the way I'm treating you. So when I think about, Charlie Kirk's death and, President Trump's assassination attempt, it's very, I have to box things up sometimes because if I don't, there's a very real fear there for speaking up because generally speaking, people don't. And if you're one of them, you're a target.
Yeah. I mean, we're seeing it right now with amongst some political commentators on the right now. Candace Owens and Tim Pool, and just going at each other. And then shots being fired at Tim Pool's house. But
yeah,
Um, there was a point I wanted to make with the secretary.
Mhm.
Was it something that might have been a lack of like knowledge? Because that was a narrative that they kept pushing during COVID, was that, if you don't wear a mask, or you don't uh s- you don't like social distance, or whatever the terms were that they used at the time, then you are putting other people at risk. Was it something that maybe wasn't known during that time?
No, we were in the 3rd phase of the pandemic, I'm almost certain,
Because there was
and
so much mixed messages going on.
well, look, I'm a nurse, right? Like, I know how this
So
works.
what was your initial thoughts when COVID first came out? Were you like, "We'll be fine"?
When it first came out, I was genuinely scared because
I love
here's
how I
the
always say "came out" like it was like
like a movie or
like a
something.
movie.
We are okay, now we view it. All right, no, like, okay, so when I heard the words, "This is a virus we've never, encountered before," is really what the governor said at, whatever words that was she said, "We've never heard of it before. It's never we don't know about it."
Unprecedented.
Yeah, it's like, we heard all
Yeah,
these things that were actually not real. Then I found out it was SARS. It's like, okay, it's SARS. We have known about SARS for decades.
right.
We know exactly what SARS is. And by that time, I think it was 2 months into it. And then okay, but really you're sitting there going, okay, something, if this is real, if this is really dangerous, then you would see it by 2 months. And then when we found out it was SARS, I'm going, okay, this is not what you said it was. But I took it very serious initially. And I still, to be fair, I still take SARS and COVID and the flu very seriously. There's a chance that at some point in time, you or I might pass of the flu.
Yeah,
It's
it could
real.
happen.
The problem is it's not a reason to shut down entire healthcare facilities, entire public education systems, and stop life altogether.
Yeah,
There are so many negative things that happened as a result of that. And masks don't stop small particles like that. I could be wearing an N95 fitted and tested mask in a negative isolation room and still contract
well, Dr.
COVID.
Fauci admitted that he lied about that
Yeah.
multiple times. He said to not buy masks, they don't help, and then he said to buy them, that they help, and then he came out again and said that he lied about all that. It doesn't stop it. Doesn't stop transmission.
He was also the perpetuator of incredible lies during the HIV.
Yeah. So I kind of want to bring this back to a topic that is, I guess, of interest to the board right now, which is the vaccination.
Yeah.
Um, Obviously, they tried pushing that on kids in schools. They tried pushing it on employees, nurses was another big one. Did you have to get vaccinated being a nurse?
Well, no, I have an interesting personal story that relates to the vaccination issue that when COVID hit, it was just too personal to me. I actually took a medication while I was pregnant, and they ended up making that medication not available to you until you were outside of your first trimester when I was pregnant with my 3rd child. I had one child with a cleft lip and another child that was born with one arm.
Oh wow.
And GlaxoSmithKline is the pharmaceutical company that created this drug, and they paid out the largest class action lawsuit in our history before the opiate epidemic happened. So it was much like thalidomide from the 60s. And we had an FDA director at the time that actually stopped it. So when people talk about RFK right now, I'm like, no, that was our FDA director then. She was really considered a petty bureaucrat, and yet she did exactly the job that a bureaucrat should do.
Yeah.
She took her mantle up and she took it seriously. So she denied thalidomide in the States at that time when we saw heart defects, limb differences, cleft lips worldwide with thalidomide.
Wow.
We didn't deal with that because she did her job. So by the time the vaccinations came around, I was working in the hospital, and I think it was the 2nd phase of the pandemic that I decided to leave before it became required.
Okay.
So I never had to say I'm going to seek an exemption, and I just fought.
Right.
I fought this idea that it should ever be required in the first place.
Well, many people lost their jobs over it too, right? For
Yeah.
refusing.
And here's the kicker: we had
Which was crazy because you have the antibodies from being sick from
yeah,
COVID.
yeah. we had the MDHHS at the board table today, and they were talking about vaccinations. They're upset because regular childhood vaccination schedules are down. Our rates are down. And one of the things I asked the top doctor in our state today, her name is Natasha Bagdasarian, and she served through COVID. And so she came before us today and she said, we're really worried about the childhood vaccination rates. And I said, well, let's talk about this because, you tell me, is there any research on annual vaccination for participants throughout their life? Somebody who's taken an annual vaccination every single year they've been alive. Do we know what that does?
No.
No, we don't, because the research doesn't exist. So do you recommend annual vaccinations, Dr. Bagnesarian? Yes, I do. Okay. So you recommend something there isn't research on. And she said, well, it's not feasible. Okay, so you recommend something that there isn't research on, and you don't believe it's feasible to do the research, and you're telling people it's safe. Now tell me, do you think that anybody should feel safe with the recommendations you make with childhood vaccination schedules? You can't get out of that. That's the problem, is that you want to talk about polio, you want to talk about measles, mumps, and rubella, and full disclosure, I do vaccinate my children on the childhood vaccinations. But I entirely respect people's right to make informed consent, and they may say no. Right? I've been there, done that. I've experienced, being the victim of the pharmaceutical industry and what the research they didn't do. Right? And the money they had to pay out, by the way, was almost like a cost of doing business. Right? When you make billions of dollars, if you have to pay out for those who gave birth to limb defects,
that's just pennies to them because of all the money. They're willing to pay those lawsuits because they made billions of dollars.
Yeah, I do try to be balanced.
A couple $1 million lawsuits not going to do anything.
I do try to be balanced, though, because antibiotics save lives.
Yeah.
Anti-seizure medications save lives. Diabetics absolutely need insulin. I'm not trying to demonize the healthcare industry but I want people to get back to, above all else, do no harm. Allow people informed consent. It's their right. It's a human right.
Yeah, I agree. Did she give a reason why they're down? The vaccines?
Well, it was funny because after I tried to say, look, like when you do what you do with it, when you did what you did during COVID,
yeah,
of course you're going to see a decline because
Created
you have a decline in
issues.
trust. Yeah, you have to rebuild trust. And she refuted that. The state superintendent was like, Nikki, mind your own business. I'm like, no. Okay. And then in the second half of the conversation, she goes, well, when there's a lot of conflict and chaos around the topic, of course we see the childhood vaccination rates decline. Like that was my argument 2 minutes ago. Like what? So no, I think that she recognizes, even though she won't acknowledge me when we have that discussion, that you just burned a bridge of trust that you have to rebuild.
Why don't they want to hear from you?
Because I rejected the premise of the issue all throughout COVID.
So you're a grifter.
Yeah, I guess. No.
So what vaccine specifically are they seeing a decline in? Is it the polio?
Well, they
measles?
referred to measles this morning. So they said that we have I think we're at 67%. I don't know. It's interesting. The data that I think is available through MICR shows a higher rate, but I'm not sure. They referred specifically to measles, which is the MMR. Then we had a lot of public comment come in, by the way, about that. We had an immunologist out of Ann Arbor who's gone before the legislature and testified regularly about how those should be separated out and shouldn't be given together, and that autism rates are actually in an increase as a result of giving them all together.
Oh, so RFK wasn't crazy.
Well, I'm sure I'll be considered crazy for even suggesting that somebody else said that they believe that's true, but that's where we're at. I mean, we do have to consider why autism rates are on the incline so significantly, right? Here's what I get kind of tired of hearing is vaccines don't cause autism. Have we talked about what does? Have we talked about how and why, there's a disproportionate increase in autism? Because unless you want to start talking about it and you want to start thinking about what we're doing differently now than we were 50 years ago, then you're just arguing, right?
How much of that is that we're more aware of it now and that there's more discussion and acceptance, I guess, around it?
Autism is not something that you're just more aware of, right? 50 years later than you were then. You would be actually probably more of aware of it then, because there's really a welcoming environment for students, no matter what their spectrum is.
You want to know a crazy story? I'm sorry, this is so off topic, but I had a guy on the podcast. His name's Richard Prangley, special needs. He's autistic, and he was one of the first guests on the podcast. But he's from Lansing, and when he was a child, he was 6 years old, his parents placed him in a group home in Coldwater. And back then, I think it was in, like, the 50s. It was in, like, the 50s, I believe.
Okay.
Obviously, it's frowned upon to be special needs, and they would refer to them as, retards.
Yeah.
And he wrote a book, and he depicts, his parents putting him in this home, and he would just stand in the doorway and watch them drive off into the sunset. So sad. Anyways, this guy, was never supposed to make it out. They throughout the book, he describes what his intellectual level was, and it was super low. And they were like, "You're never getting out of here." And they would do shock therapy on children there.
Wow.
And he ended up deciding that, you know what, I don't want to be here anymore. So he had to prove himself to the people in this essential prison, and ended up moving up levels and ended up in a new building, which was like less, I guess, less needy children.
Okay.
He worked his way out of there, out of the facility, ended up in a group home in Grand Rapids, and then started working a job. And then he ended up coming to Lansing, worked with one of the governors to have that place shut down. And
You're gonna make me cry.
it's such a
It's been a
sad
long
story.
day.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
He wrote a book. It's called Waiting for a Home. And reading that book will make you cry. But he's an awesome fella.
I have to meet him.
You want to meet him?
I do.
Let me hold on. Let me pull this up. Um
Yeah, that's where we're live now.
We are live. Oh, why is it not coming up? Hold on.
That's really cool story. I mean, you have to think about how much regulation he had to have all those years to, prove his capacity.
Well, what's even crazier is the governor found him so compelling that they created a special job for him in government. So he had a job with the state of Michigan that was specifically for him. And so he retired from the state of Michigan with a full retirement, and his only goal in life was to be able to buy his own house.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Was he able to meet his parents again? And
He did,
Okay.
and that's a sad story as well.
Oh,
I think he talked about it on the podcast. So the thing is this is the story right here. Waiting for home, interview with Richard Prangley. This is old.
Into a different world from the institutionalization, from the home setting. Yeah, I never got to be just like being sentenced, incarcerated for 15 years, like what I went through.
And you're a kid, so you don't know how to handle that.
Didn't know how. Oh, I was scared, and frightened, homesickening, and it was unpleasant to say the least. Have surrounding other resident, it can't take care of themselves. Someone would like to do bad things, bite you, all kinds of beaten by other resident. Not only the residents you got to look out for, the staff too, the ones that take care of us. Some of the staff wasn't very nice.
I know. I what's up?
he has an incredible heart
Yeah. He's
to endure that.
It was cool because I had to go pick him up to bring him on the podcast. He doesn't drive.
Okay.
And so I went to his house, picked him up, and he's like, "If you bring me on the podcast to tell my story, I'll buy you lunch."
Oh.
And so we all went out to lunch with him. But yeah, he's an amazing guy. And his story is pretty incredible, and not many people know it, which is crazy. And he lives right here in our community.
So, okay, is he not a shining example of what public education really is? He begged for it. He had to
fight for it.
He had to fight for it. He had to break out of and into it. And that is something to be said, like, right? Because when you think about what public education is here for and why it's worth fighting for, he's fighting for it for himself, right? He's saying it's worth being functional and successful, and developing a set of skills so that you can take care of yourself and others. Like, he was relegated to a space of you'll never be able to do that, and he had to fight to prove that he could do that.
Yeah, it's one of the most incredible underdog stories.
Wow. I hate to say this, but I don't follow you. Will you share the podcast with me?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll send
Okay.
you a link, but yeah, waiting for a home. And he has a book. I believe you can get it on Amazon as well.
How long have you been doing this? That was in 2021.
Yeah, 5 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
You love this.
I love doing it. Yeah.
Tell me what you love about it.
I love meeting new people and giving them an opportunity to share their stories. I get an education from it. You know, a lot of people think that, oh, you're just out here pushing your ideas, your right-wing ideas, which,
Oh.
you know, I'm not. I'm just here asking what your ideas are and your thoughts. And through that, I get an education and I learn. So that's probably one of the biggest things. I don't know. I just enjoy meeting new people and talking to people. And, you know, it's crazy because when I started, my brother commented, he said, "What's up, guys?" He has a podcast as well, and I've been on his show too. It's called The Church Split.
Nice.
But when I started, I had no idea how to do a podcast. In fact, I reached out to my brother because he had been doing it for a couple of years, and I'm like, how do I do this? Like, how do I sync cameras up to microphones? I have no idea. I don't know how to sit down and talk to people. I'm a line worker at GM. Like
Oh, okay. Do you still work?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I do.
Okay.
This is not my full-time gig. I wish it
Understood.
was.
Yeah.
But you know, and it's something that over time and through consistency, I've learned to get better. And it's an art to be able to have a conversation with somebody. You know, like to be able to have a fluid conversation back and forth. It's not something that just anybody can do.
Correct.
It's very difficult.
In politics, you find that out pretty quickly. And I didn't realize it before I got into politics, was that relationship is really at the center of it. And if you can't have the conversation to begin with, then there's already almost a hard stop right there with the conversation
Yeah.
and the issue itself. So
But you got to kind of separate yourself from the idea. You know,
Yeah.
like you're necessarily your ideas or thoughts, and people change over time. So you got to be able to like have that discussion without taking it personally.
for sure. And then explore it. How do you explore it if you can't have the conversation?
Yeah.
Yeah, relationship is extremely important. I didn't realize, like, okay, so as a podcaster, you probably have a number of different backgrounds that you've opened up to that you have never even considered.
Oh my gosh, so many. You know, I've had religious people on. I've
Okay.
had fighters on the podcast. I had a guy who was in the UFC on the podcast who's from the Lansing area. I've had Ryan Kelly on the podcast,
Oh, okay.
who is super controversial. I've had, you know, Monica on the podcast. I've
Yeah.
had business owners on the podcast. I've had like people that were in foster care, because that's how I started the podcast, was to share my personal story.
We talked about foster care today too, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah, one of the biggest things that the foster care community really needs, these students need their records to be immediately released.
Oh my gosh. So this is a huge topic.
Mhm.
People are separate from their ideals. Nailed it. Appreciate the support. That's something actually I recently talked about on the podcast, because I just recently interviewed somebody who gave their daughter up for adoption. But
Okay.
one of the biggest concerns is, so like I was in foster care and I was adopted.
Okay.
When I turned 18, I didn't get a packet of information like, hey, this is how you can find your biological family.
Yeah.
I didn't get any of that. And so I had to, at the time, Facebook was just kind of like becoming a thing. It was like in 2012. So it wasn't
2012. I swear I was 2005. That's okay.
well, you know, it was still like in its infancy of like,
Yes.
you know, people may or may not be on it. You know,
Yeah.
it wasn't like everybody's on it.
Okay.
And so I was fortunate enough to have a job where I was able to sit and watch this resident, because I worked at a nursing home, and I just had to make sure he didn't fall. And so during the night, I would just sit there and scroll and try to find information on my mom. I'd
Yeah.
type her name in, try to find court records, because, you know, like there should be court records.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a guideline of
So
like
this was
how.
after 18.
This was
You were
after I turned
searching.
18, yeah.
Okay.
And
Have you found your parents?
I found both of my parents.
Are they in Michigan?
My mom is. My
Okay.
dad actually is an illegal immigrant he went back to Honduras this last year.
Okay.
So that's a whole nother
I was
story.
gonna say this is deep.
So
there's probably competing experiences with it. It's rough. I'm assuming. Like,
yeah.
do-
So my biggest thing is not to get completely into my story is it's so difficult for foster kids to be able to reconnect. There has to be a system because one of the ways that I was able to kind of get my information was I requested the state of Michigan to send me my records,
okay.
but that took so long. It took months
Wow.
and months and months, and I finally got it. But this was after I found my mom and everything.
Okay.
So
Do you get to see her often?
yeah, the relationship's a little rough there.
Okay.
But
It's there.
when you lose children to foster care,
It's hard.
it ruins you.
Yeah.
And I couldn't imagine what that would be like, and that's definitely taken a toll on her. So
Sure. I'm sure.
yeah. And hold on, I'll catch up on these comments real quick. Yeah, it really is what. Hold on, let me just add this. Really is wild in the foster system. Kids don't get a packet if available to connect with their family. It's not like they're adopted as babies on a closed adoption. Strange. She's getting all of David's lore.
Conversation, relationship. That's what we're doing.
That's right. That's what people like anyways.
Yes.
They want to get the nitty-gritty. But to kind of cover my dad a little bit, the last time I had seen my dad, and I'm from Florida, by the way. So
Okay. So when did you move back to Michigan?
I moved here when I was 9.
Okay.
Yeah.
Were you with your mom and your dad?
I was with my mom.
Okay.
My dad and my mom had separated when I was like 3. The
So
last time
you have memories of your mom from a young age.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a whole nother story. I could send
Yeah.
you that episode as well.
Yeah.
You might actually cry.
I'm sure.
But but the thing is like it's a sad story overall. Anytime I tell somebody, they're like, I can't believe you went through all that. But the thing is like that's not who I am. Like I don't live in that. I don't, it affects me, but it's part of my story and who I am, and it helps me to be able to do this.
Yeah, we were made to do hard things.
I agree with that.
We were not made to do easy things. We were literally made to do hard things, and we don't get to choose which hard things. Yeah, it just happens.
Yeah.
So it is that's just the reality. That's something I think that it was crazy when I was getting my ultrasound with my youngest, who was born with one arm. He's like a Jim Abbott, by the way. And he's actually a pitcher himself.
Wow.
He's very good at it. He's kind of like a closing pitcher. Like he does best in the last few innings if he's going to pitch. And then he's really great. I mean, he just is out here to blaze a trail and teach people that he's got it too. It's fine. But when I was going through that ultrasound, I remember being with the doctor before I went in for that ultrasound. And I was very concerned because when the doctor handed me my second baby that I had a cleft lip with, I didn't know until they handed her to me. And it was like, okay, everything's fine. She made it through a very traumatic birth, but she has a microform cleft lip and she will need surgery. Okay. I could care less. She's alive. I was so grateful. And that was one of the best moments of my life. But then months after that and leading up to my son's birth, it was like, what if something goes wrong again? And it was always in the back of my head. And the doctor was just like, there's like a 0.00000. Like I can't tell you how many zeros she was using, like chance that you're going to have another baby with a congenital anomaly.
Wow.
So when I showed up for that ultrasound, they didn't tell me when I got the ultrasound that he had one arm. I left and I went to Target to shop for baby clothes because I knew I was having a boy. I did not know I was having a girl when I had the girl. So not only was I like, I'm happy she's alive, it's a girl. Then I knew I was having another boy. So boy, girl, boy. So I go to Target to shop for boy clothes. And I'm in the middle of Target when I get the call from the ultrasound doctor that says, do you have a minute? I'm like, yeah. And then she's telling me, you're going to give birth to a son that's like Jim Abbott. And I don't know Jim Abbott. And none of my kids play baseball. And I stopped playing softball after 11 because I had a cyst on my hand and they kept operating on it and it kept coming back. So like, what are we talking about here? And then she was like, okay, well, it's like his arm is cut off at this point. And I just like literally slumped to the floor and was crying. I had a stranger in Target come and hold me.
Wow.
It was very like, those are the moments where you're like, you really have no idea what God is going to give you to take care of and love, or to go through and to learn to rely on him for. Like, you just don't know. And the hope is that you get through it with as much love and joy as is possible. But in that moment, I was like literally slumped on the floor weeping and like, what the heck just happened?
And I could imagine that it made you a stronger person. I mean, because it can't be easy raising a child with one arm, right?
No, it's actually like
What?
totally easy.
Is it?
Yeah, it's like I actually was a little bit more concerned about, am I enough for him than I ever needed to be concerned. But it was just like he'll ask questions like, what happened, or why did this happen? And those are tough questions to answer.
Did you have fear of like what he would be treated like growing up?
Oh,
Like,
for sure. And by
yeah.
the way, that's a legitimate fear. Like, he has been called creepy and
Oh my
different
gosh.
various things that you would never believe that people have the audacity to say, and people that are in close proximity to you, right? Like, that you are like, who is teaching you how to behave?
Yeah.
What's going on? Why did you just say that?
The thing is like when you have something like that you can't help that a situation, whether it's a situation or a circumstance that you're given in life, it makes you a stronger person.
For sure.
And like I had this one guy on the podcast a couple years ago, and he was in the military. His name, why is it slipping me? Anyways, he's a famous guy. He had his arm and his leg blown off overseas.
IEDs.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he came back. He became a super like drunk. He drank himself like to sleep every day.
Yeah.
And finally he just got up one day and he's seen his kids playing, and he's like, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
And he changed it. Like he embraced what he had, and he became super fit. He was fat before, got super
Okay.
fit, got on the cover of Men's Health magazine. He went on Ellen because he was
I
on
need to know
Dancing with the
his
Stars.
name. You're gonna
Uh
have to send it to me later.
yeah, I have so many episodes to send you apparently. But the thing is like that was a circumstance that he didn't necessarily have growing up or even into his young adulthood, but it was something he had to adapt to, and then it just made him even more stronger as a person and resilient.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what else? The thing is that I think that oftentimes, and I say this to my mom too, and when we have an opportunity to have real conversation about things, and she'll have to say, well, you think life shouldn't be this hard. And I'm like, actually, the one thing we're guaranteed is suffering.
That's funny that you say that, because I was actually going to write a blog about that. I have a newsletter, and suffering I think is essential for life. You can't choose your suffer, but you can choose the way you navigate through it. And I think that if you suffer, it kind of it changes what is hard to you.
Yeah.
Like your parameters for what is difficult is now a lot wider. You can handle a lot more.
Yeah.
I'm somebody who, for some reason, I think I like to suffer a lot.
You're like putting yourself in the position to do so. Let's see how I handle it today.
Yeah. And I think like for me, I seek that out in like physical attributes, like going to the gym, doing the cold plunge, steam room, sauna. Like it's pure suffering.
You're a sauna guy.
Yeah, I love it.
I just rented a sauna for Thanksgiving. That was like my.
You say it like that.
I like it was great. Well, I am a Youper. Do you know that?
Oh, okay. I did not know that.
Now you're gonna hear it. Yeah, no, I'm from Marquette, so I grew up there and then moved down here when I was 15. But a sauna is very much like a disciplined requirement for you to get in and say, I'm going to make it to this point. I mean, so long as you don't have symptoms that tell you got to get out. But
Right.
most of the time, if you go at it slow and you do it cyclically, it's good.
How often do you do it?
Not enough. But I have gone over to the east side. There is this horse. Stillwater Stables. Have you ever heard of it?
I think I've heard of it.
Okay, they have like a hot tub, like a little area where you can go do the sauna there. It's an infrared sauna.
Okay.
hot tub, and then like a little love bug camper you can stay in.
Oh, cool.
But you can also rent it through Sisu Mobile Sauna. Have you ever heard of them?
No.
Okay. Sisu Mobile Sauna is a rental here in Michigan. They'll come and drop it off to you,
Oh,
and
cool.
you can keep it for however many days you rent it, and multiple people. It was really great.
That is cool.
Yeah. It was perfect around Thanksgiving too, to sweat the toxins out of like all the things.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's oftentimes I have a membership at this place called the Michigan Athletic Club, and it's here in East Lansing. But they have the steam room, sauna, and so oftentimes what I do is I go there and I'll get in the cold plunge for 3 minutes, and then I go lift for about an hour, and then I come back and I get in the steam room for 10 minutes, and then I come and get in then I go get in the sauna for like 20.
So
And
you don't do hot cold rotating.
sometimes I do.
Okay.
Sometimes, like if it's an active recovery day, I'll go get in the cold plunge. I do it different ways because they also have a hot tub. So I'll get in the cold plunge for like, I don't know, 60 seconds, and then I'll get into the hot tub for like 7 minutes.
Okay.
And then I go back and forth. Or I'll do cold plunge, steam room, or
Very good.
cold plunge, and then I'll go sit in the sauna for like 40 minutes.
Do you do what kind of workout do you do?
Weightlifting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Like CrossFit, or do you just do your own type of
No,
plan?
just
Okay.
not powerlifting, but yeah, just lift heavy.
Okay. Very good. So what's your best PR?
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, like I feel like most men would say their bench.
Okay, a bench press.
But
I don't like bench pressing.
no.
Like as a woman, I don't really want that to be as developed as say like, my bottom half, because the bottom half too, by the way, is longevity,
Yeah.
right? Like
yeah.
you're like, that's the thing I like to focus on.
Yeah. I mean, I don't try to PR and wait because I just don't want to get injured.
Mhm. Smart.
So I just want to stay fit. I want to look good, and I
Mhm.
just want to be able to run
good.
and do whatever. Like,
Look good, feel good.
yeah, exactly.
Stay young, longevity.
Yep.
Yeah, you don't need to
I'm not
focus on weight.
I'm not powerlifting.
Yeah.
No. I used to do CrossFit though.
Okay.
It's very hard.
It is very hard. There are some days I'm halfway through the workout and I'm like, why am I doing this again? But it's been very helpful for me. I have, not ready to go through it today, but I've had a lot of rough personal reality in the last couple of years. And I'm telling you right now that if you can get out and just work out, it is a huge outlet in my mind. Like if I go more than 3 days without working out, it really does impact like
Your mental state of being.
Yeah. I really have to get out, get fresh air, take a walk, or do CrossFit. Like generally speaking, like in the last few years, I've needed to just do CrossFit at least 3 or 4 times a week.
Yeah.
My body doesn't want to deal with it if beyond 4 times. It's like, you're in your 40s. This isn't going to work.
So do you do competitions or anything like that?
No.
You just do CrossFit classes?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. And I'm not one of those people in the gym that's like, you know what, I'm going to be the fastest. Like the workouts for time, actually, the workouts for time kind of irritate me because I'm not doing something for time. I'm going to do something based on where my body's at and like where I'm at in my cycle. And sorry, I'm going to be honest. Like if I can show up today like that, then I'm going to. If I can't, then I'm going to be easy on myself, and I'm going to just I just have compassion for the idea that women have a very different like every day, right?
Yeah.
And so if you're here and you can make it work and you can finish the workout, that's your 100% today. And then maybe next month on the same day, I might kill it. I don't know.
What I really like about CrossFit is that, for one, you could just show up to the class and you don't really have to think too much about it. And you kind of get a balance of everything from weightlifting to cardio. And I think that's important, for longevity.
For sure.
And being able to push yourself. It's very difficult.
It is.
Yeah.
I was able to do pull-ups for the first time since I was a gymnast as a young girl because of CrossFit.
I just put up a post today about pull-ups.
Pull-ups are great.
Did you see RFK doing pull-ups?
No.
And was it the DNC?
I gotta see that.
Oh, where did I post it? Facebook, I think. I'll pull that up real quick and we can end it here soon.
Yeah. We should talk about one more thing before we end it. Safety in schools is extremely important.
Hold on. I'm gonna share this.
71.
Yeah, he's 71 years old. Have you ever met him?
No.
I met him. Oh, and my kids met him.
That's cool.
Yes, sir. Wait.
No rep.
4,
Where's the pen?
6, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Oh, man.
He's coming for you, Paul.
He's coming for me. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Let's go. Get up there.
He
Come on.
wants one more.
Good for him.
Yeah, I think that's very impressive. But yeah, there's a statistic that it was like 40. I got to pull that up again. Sorry. Oh man, my phone's on airplane mode. Okay, hold on.
Is this the statistic is on pull-ups?
Yeah, 17.4% of adult men and 4.9% of adult women in the U.S. can do a pull-up.
Oh my goodness. I did 41 for my 41st birthday. Because they make you
In a
do-
row?
Well, they don't make you do the birthday pull-ups, but it was my goal to be able to do it. No, I can't do them in a row.
Oh.
I do them in sets of 5.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I can't do I can do strict ones in sets of 3.
You do the kipping?
I have to do the kipping, and I was a gymnast, so I'm like an extra kipper. It's
Okay.
a thing that it's just how it works.
I
in
did
order to
the-
do 'em.
I did a Murph one time with my friend at East Lansing CrossFit, and I was doing strict pull-ups, and she's I think it was her, I think, or maybe the person directing the class, and they were like, "Are you gonna kip?" And I was like, "No, I'm gonna do strict."
Oh,
And
they're like, good luck with
I got
that.
like 50 in, and I'm like, "Yeah, I'm kipping."
Yeah, that's not gonna work.
No. So, all right, safety. Let's talk about that.
Safety is a really big issue in the state of Michigan. You remember the Oxford shooting, right?
Yeah, actually, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
That's
there was a
okay.
father that isn't he suing the school because they failed to implement some safety?
I don't know that he has litigation against the school. I know the 4 parents, and I know that they're all still very much committed to improving safety in Michigan schools. But I'd have to look up whether or not one of the fathers is doing that. One of the things that people need to know about safety in schools is that we have emergency operation plans that were mandated by the federal government post 9/11. It was in our infrastructure mandates. Our critical infrastructure mandates, we have to have emergency operation plans at the local level, and they're supposed to be updated every 2 years. So what we're seeing right now, Troon Law Firm out of Michigan, it's a taxpayer funded, like local school boards, choose to use Troon, and they use taxpayer dollars to fund them. And we have schools right now. I love that you just joined us. We have schools right now that are suing for the issue of the legislature attached dollars in relationship to safety measures. And one of the exchanges essentially is that schools would give up their privileged liability. Right now, they really aren't mandated to take part in comprehensive investigations post mass casualties. And they aren't required to turn over information that they want to consider personal information, as opposed to it being meaningful information in relationship to a mass casualty. So in order for schools to get that money, and they should really want it because it's attached to things that will make school districts safer, whether it's counselors, help with mental health, or like basic things for keeping, infrastructure safety, like they should want that money, but they don't want to hand over the idea that, okay, then I'd have to comply with comprehensive investigation and
Is it because they might have done
Disclose-
something not
Yes.
right?
disclose information. Yep. So the reality here is schools should not be fighting that. We should not
Yeah.
be using taxpayer dollars for schools to fight that.
So is it because they don't have the resources to implement safer environments?
Well, the problem that happened in Oxford is that administrators actually did not act when they should have acted.
Right. Yeah, there was
Okay.
warning signs.
Yes. And one of the things I said frequently over the last couple of years is, as a nurse, if I do something that harms a patient, I am liable for it.
Yeah.
There's nothing that protects me.
Yeah.
that we live in a state that protects the liability of administrators that violate their own emergency operation plan and a student, even if it's just one student
Yeah.
that dies.
So
That's a problem.
who would be held accountable for that? Would it be the staff that just kind of overlooked it,
So that's something that, I mean, I guess it would be on an individual basis based on that.
or would it be the school district?
Based on the investigation that they're trying to say they don't want to have to comply with in the first place. That's the whole idea is, what are you fighting here? Why
Right.
are you honestly fighting comprehensive investigations and disclosure of meaningful information to make sure that students are safe?
Right.
And at the bare minimum, you learn from things like mass casualty events. So that's something I would argue that's a great topic to explore in the future, is why is this happening?
Right.
Why do we have schools in the state of Michigan that are fighting that?
What schools are fighting it?
You know what? It's a amicus brief to my knowledge, and I have not been able to actually look at the amicus brief, and I believe it's being filed at the federal level
Oh, wow.
by a Troon law firm. Whatever they're doing, they are fighting on behalf of schools to not have to opt into complete investigation, comprehensive investigation, and disclosure of information.
So what can be done?
Go to your local school board. Okay, what can be done is that go to your local school board and ask them to accept the dollars and accept the responsibility.
Yeah.
Make our schools safer and accept the responsibility associated with making them, and being, held accountable for your actions, just like everybody else out here is.
Yeah.
That's what can be done, really.
Yeah. I mean, they want to hold police officers accountable when they do something when they shouldn't have, or like you said, nurses or doctors.
Mhm.
It should
There's
be
no
the same
other
thing.
profession out here that can just do whatever and not be subject to comprehensive investigation and disclosure of information. It just doesn't exist.
Yeah.
But yet, schools tend to be, this veil of protection that they have, and it's not appropriate. It's not what's best. And to circle back around to gender identity theory, I emailed you or I texted you a resolution.
Yeah,
I would
I have it.
really encourage, if anybody reaches out to you or is asking you what can be done next about that, this is a resolution that can be adopted at the local level. Tom and I tried to get this passed at the state board of education, and we couldn't. That was the month before they actually approved these health education guidelines. So, a lot of people are saying, what can we do now? You can adopt something like this.
Do you want me to read it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So insert your local district school board resolution to affirm parental rights established by Supreme Court precedent in Muhammad versus Taylor. Whereas Muhammad versus Taylor of June 2025 decided in favor of parents who challenge a Maryland school district curriculum involving the introduction of LGBTQ plus storybooks into elementary school curriculum, and set precedent that public schools must allow parents to opt their children out of an instructional content that conflict with their sincerely held religious beliefs. Whereas the same Supreme Court decision also went beyond curriculum and materials related to gender identity and sexuality. The court held that denying parents the ability to opt out substantially interferes with their religious development of their children, and defined the free exercise clause of our Constitution as it intersects with public education present day. Whereas this court ruling provides the boundaries with which departments of education should adhere in developing health education standards, any framework or any other communications or guidance to local districts in choosing curriculum for any instructional purpose in public education, and to ensure that there is no violation of the Constitution of the United States and the fundamental unalienable rights protected in that Constitution. Whereas Michigan compiled law 380.127.8a regarding requirements for a high school diploma, students must complete health education aligned with guidelines developed by the department and approved by the State Board of Education. Whereas Michigan law requires a separation of sex education and health education to provide for the local control of and opting out of such instruction.
I can read this last part. This is
Okay.
where it adopts essentially what we tried to adopt at the State Board of Education level and urge them not to pass the health education guidelines. And essentially, local districts can insert their own local district name, and therefore be it resolved, insert your local district school board, finds that the health education guidelines developed by the Michigan Department of Education are a violation of the United States Constitution and the fundamental rights protected in that Constitution as recognized by the Supreme Court precedent set in Mahmoud v. Taylor, and will not be included in health education required for graduation with a high school diploma in insert your local school district. Our district will continue to separate health education and sex education and will not be in violation with the Constitution protection provided by the law of the land and as determined by the highest court in this nation. So I think that's the next step. I think that local advocates, parents, and people can bring this resolution to their local school board. And instead of just taking it and rolling over, they can say, nope, this is what we resolved to do. We know that the department's guidelines are really in opposition of parental rights, and there's Supreme Court precedent. There's 2 state laws that separate the issues. We're not going to just accept it.
Yeah.
So we're going to continue to do what we were doing.
Are there a lot of advocacy groups that fight for the parental rights?
Yes, there are a lot of them. I could send you some of them. Citizens for Traditional Values are one of them. Salt Lake Global is one of them. There's plenty more,
Okay.
but those were the 2 that were at the forefront that showed up. And
Now, with this being like mainly, I guess, Lansing-based podcast, what is local to Lansing? Do you know?
both of them are. I think they both operate in Lansing.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to say that they do, but I'd have to confirm that.
Like the greater Lansing area?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So yeah,
Wow.
act at the local level. That's what's next.
You should do a podcast, by the way.
Oh.
You should just like go to one of these board meetings and then go straight to a podcast studio and just record your thoughts.
You know what I really want to do? I really want to give space to local school board members. So maybe I will work on giving space to local school board members in this fashion at some point in time, because I really want to know what's going on the ground.
Yeah.
And I feel like, I know what's going on in my local school district for my own children. I know what I'm serving, the capacity I'm serving with as a state board of education member. But what I get frustrated with is just filtering everything through that lens as opposed to being in regular contact with other local school board members and how they're interpreting things, what their issues are, what kind of support they need.
Yeah.
Otherwise, what I think happens is things just get tucked away and we don't actually hear about what's really going on.
Yeah. I mean, and that's a good way to bring real issues to the table. I mean, like the whole gender identity thing, is that really a concern? Is that really an issue? You know what I mean? There's other things that are greater issues, like safety.
Yep, for sure. Literacy, math skills, extracurriculars. Exactly what does a diploma mean anymore? What are you doing after school? What are you going to do? Right. Like there's a number of conversations that can be had.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
well, Nikki, thanks for doing the podcast. This was a lot of fun. If you ever want to come back, just reach out.
Awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. Thanks everybody for listening. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube. Follow me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, X, all the social media platforms. Thanks again. See you, everybody.